In 1 Samuel chapter 30, David is actually on the run from King Saul. And Saul has been trying to kill David. David and his men are living in the city in the land of the Philistines. And periodically, David and his men go on these campaigns to fight against the enemies of Israel. And one day, as they're returning from having been out, they see smoke in the distance. And one of them probably said, "Hey, that looks like it might be coming from home." And so they hurry back and they find out that, sure enough, the city where they had been living has completely ransacked. Their loved ones, wives, and children had been kidnapped and taken into slavery. The buildings had been burned to the ground. There was absolutely nothing left, and they must have been devastated. It is hard for us to get our mind around what it would have felt like for David and his men in that moment when just everything is in ruins. And when we pick up the story in 1 Samuel 30, verse 6, "Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God." And verse 4 says that the people who were with him lifted up their voices and they wept until they had no more power to weep. And then everyone turns on David. They unjustly accuse him of being responsible for their ransacked town. And so now David has not only lost everything he owns, but he is also about to be stoned. His men are blaming him for all of the problems. Not only is he responsible for these men and now their families are gone, but his own wife is gone too. His children are gone. And yet we read that David strengthened himself in the Lord. Other translations say that David found strength in the Lord, or that he felt the Lord giving him strength, or that he drew strength from the Lord. The point was that David was a little perplexed. He was tired. He was unjustly blamed and sad. So how did he find strength? In Isaiah 27:5, God says, "Let him take hold of my strength, that he may make peace with me, and he shall make peace with me." David took hold of the strength of God, and the question is how? Perhaps he reminded himself of past victories. Maybe he prayed. Maybe he worshiped. Perhaps he considered God's faithful character or the strength of God's promise. We don't actually know specifically what David did. We only know that at this critical time, he found strength, and that you can as well. You can take hold of the strength of God. Psalm 29:11 says, "The Lord will give strength to his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace." And Psalm 46:1 tells us, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble." So whether you are in need of spiritual strength, emotional strength, material strength, physical strength, God has it and it can be taken a hold of. All right, so before we get started today, I want you guys to download Swift Playgrounds to your iPad. Now, it may take a minute because all of us are going to try to download it at the same time, but that's why we're going to do it now at the beginning so that it can load while we go through the lesson. So go ahead and find it and download it. I will show you what the app icon looks like, and I'm going to give you about 1 minute to get it downloading, and then we're going to start in OneNote with the lesson. So go to where you download your apps, search for Swift Playgrounds. It should be under S. And this is what the symbol should look like. Push download, get, whatever, and make sure that it starts downloading. And there's nothing else you need to do right now other than make sure that's downloading in the background. And then you should just focus on the lesson for the rest of the class. So today we are going to start looking at computer science and computer programming. There may be a few of you who are like genuinely interested in this, and there are also probably more of us who are genuinely terrified of this. So before we get ahead of ourselves, I just want to start by looking at what computer science is. So on your iPads, I want you to open OneNote, and under Unit 3, you're going to see that there is a page that is called What is Computer Science, or CS is the abbreviation for computer science. So I want you guys to open this page, and that's what we're going to be completing today. We are actually going to watch 2 videos that will help you answer the questions on this page. You will have to turn this in, so make sure that you're paying attention. I want you guys to know that the questions do not necessarily go in order, and they're not necessarily directly quoted from the video either. So the idea is for you to watch the videos, take what you understand from the video, and then answer the question in your own words. So make sure that you have the page open, and then we're going to start with the first video.
I grew up in Tehran, Iran. This is me with my twin brother. That's me on the left. When I was 6 years old, a brutal monarchy was replaced by a brutal Islamic revolution in a totalitarian regime. And then quickly thereafter, a war broke out with our neighboring country of Iraq. We lived in a neighborhood right next to the television station, so every single evening, Saddam Hussein's air raids would bomb our neighborhood trying to hit the TV station. And I spent my evenings with my whole family in the basement, holding our ears, hoping that our house wouldn't get hit. When we were 10 years old, the arc of my life completely changed. My dad brought us home a computer, a Commodore 64, and he said, "This doesn't have any games on it, but here's a book about computer programming, and you can learn to write your own games." There wasn't much else to do in Iran at the time, so my brother and I spent a whole lot of time learning how to use that computer. And by the time our family immigrated to the United States, I was good enough to pay my own way through college as a computer programmer, and then I had a great job coming right out of college, and then a fantastic career in the tech industry. And I basically have been living the American dream. The American dream is no longer about going out west and building a log cabin, and it's much more of a worldwide ideal. America is the land of opportunity, and the American dream is a worldwide ideal about opportunity. And these days, there's no greater opportunity than to change the world through technology. And these days, technology affects every field. It's not just about computers anymore, and it's not just about smartphones or tablets. Technology is about medicine, about energy, about space research, about entertainment, about transportation, or even far out things like contact lenses you put in your eyes that have computers in them. At this day and age, I look back to my own life and then fast forward 30 years. 30 years later, let's look at a young kid named Armand. He's in Washington Heights, just north of Harlem, going to school at a school that does not teach computer science. This is Rahel, just a few miles from here in South Seattle. Her entire neighborhood, none of the schools teach computer science. And it makes you think, what will the careers look like for a student graduating in 2030? A kid entering kindergarten today will be graduating from college in 16 years. I used to say that, you should learn about this stuff unless you want to be getting a job flipping a burger or driving a truck. But in that time frame, robots will be flipping burgers. There's already research into trucks that drive themselves. What does school look like for kids that are going to be graduating in that time frame? School has evolved as technology progresses to teach in different ways. And we need to figure out how that change needs to happen now as well. When I went to school, every student would learn how to dissect a frog. Every student would learn how electricity works. Every student would learn how to prove a basic theorem. And this isn't because we want to become biologists or electricians or mathematicians. Not every kid goes into those careers. It's to learn how the world around us works. And in today's days and age, it's just as important for a kid to learn what is an algorithm or how does the internet work. Computers are changing everything, yet most schools don't teach computer science. Now, I work for an organization called Code.org, and so of course, you may think I'm here to say our kids should be learning to code, right? But I'm actually here to say that our kids should be learning computer science, which is a much broader field about learning how technology works, learning how software is changing our world, and how to participate in that world. Now, Of course, computer science education is on the rise because technology is growing, right? That also is not true. Computer science education is on the recovery after a 10-year decline. Here's a chart of computer science graduates over the last 10 or 15 years. You can see we're almost where we were 10 years ago, but on the lower bars, which are the women in this field, there's half as many women in this field as there were 10 years ago. This is not a good situation to be in one of the fastest growing industries in the world. Now, I'm from the tech industry, so people assume I'm here because the tech industry is desperate to hire more computer programmers. That also isn't true. Every industry is desperately trying to hire computer programmers. And this is not just in this state or in California, it's in every state of this country and in every country in the world. Now, computer science, of course, is about technology, but the reason we should be teaching it to our students is because actually computer science is broader than that. It's about logic, problem solving, and creativity. This is a picture of the first computer, made in 1943. Now, consider if computer science is about technology, well, no, this is the first computer program written in 1843. Computer science is not just about building technology, it's about coming up with algorithms and solutions to problems. This lady here, Ada Lovelace, a girl, was the first computer programmer who came up with the idea of how algorithms can manage machines and solve problems. And so in this day and age, computer science is no longer just vocational for getting a job. In this day and age, computer science is completely foundational for any job you may want to have in the next 20, 30 years. And so the real question is, can our public education system evolve? In a day and age where we have the software and the internet causing the greatest transformation in our society, changing the fabric of every single job and every single industry, what can our schools do to keep up? We have, on the one hand, a job growth that is outpacing student growth 3 to 1 in this industry or in this field, a chance to strengthen the middle class at a time of record inequality, and yet an education system that is stuck in the past. Now, most people don't believe that public education can evolve or change, and I'm here to say that not only it can evolve and change, that it is evolving and changing at a record pace never seen before. Sooner than you think, every school will be teaching computer science. Sooner than you think, there will be as many girls entering this field as there are boys. Sooner than you think, access to education in this space won't be determined by where you live or the color of your skin. A lot of people think this is something that, my 10-year-old child can't learn, or it's not for my daughter. But there's a lot of people who now think that that's different. And that's because of a movement that started about a year ago called the Hour of Code. The Hour of Code was an idea and a grassroots movement that was fueled by over 200 partners. It started with a speech by the President of the United States on the homepage of Google and in every single Apple store and Microsoft in the country. But most importantly, it was fueled by 50,000 teachers who believed that their classroom and their students should have access to this new field. 11 months later, 48 million students have tried 1 hour of computer science. And these are girls, boys of all ages, from 6 years old to 80 years old, in every single country of the world, but most of them are in middle school and high school. This thing started with a bang. In 1 week, we had more girls try computer science in school than in the entire history of the field. And now people ask me, well, what can you learn in 1 hour? In 1 hour, you're not going to become a software engineer. You're not going to build an app that becomes, a multi-million-dollar success. But in 1 hour, you learn that computers are fun. You learn that you can write code to manage an Angry Bird or Elsa even. And the code that you write isn't about typing parentheses or semicolons. It's about dragging and dropping basic commands to make things happen and to make cool art. And while you're making cool art, you also learn about mathematical concepts like the angles. Most than anything else, you learn that computer science is easier than you think, it's more fun than you think, and that your 8-year-old daughter can do it. And so then there's a question of what happens after the Hour of Code, because 1 hour doesn't teach that much. The Hour of Code really is a seed that is planted in classrooms and in schools. I want to go back to the students I showed you earlier. This is Rahel. Her school now has a computer science class, and an entire school district in the Highline School District is rolling out computer science classes in an intro class in high school. This is Armand. His teacher tried the Hour of Code, and she was so inspired by the children's reaction that she picked up an online course, and now every single student in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade in her school is learning computer science. In just 11 months, 50,000 new classrooms now teach computer science, reaching 2.5 million students as a full course, 40% of which are girls. This is a huge, huge transformation. Thank you. Computer science is now the fastest spreading course in the history of public education. In the schools that offer it, students absolutely flock to it. This is something that kids get engaged in. It relates to their everyday life. They realize this isn't just about memorizing the capitals of other countries. It's not about taking tests. It's about creating things. Every one of these kids sees technology changing the world around them. They play with tablets or phones and games, and this is a chance for them to actually participate in the world they live in, not just learning how to answer multiple choice questions. At the same time as it's growing very, very fast, we have a long, long way to go. We have 2 million kids enrolled in this field. There's 1 billion students in the world. The Hour of Code has so far reached 50,000 schools and almost 50 million students. Our goal is to get it to 100,000 schools and 100 million students. We're 2 weeks away from Computer Science Education Week and the 1-year anniversary of the Hour of Code, and we have about 50,000 classrooms signed up to do this exercise again, to plant the seed that's going to bring computer science courses to their neighborhoods, to their schools. Please help me in growing this movement. If you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a student, get it into a classroom, get a child to try the Hour of Code at code.org. Thank you very much.
I love this video, and it's because it shows how anyone can and should get involved with computer science. In a future not too far away, everyone is going to know some kind of computer science. And the question is, are you going to be left behind? You may not feel this way, but you are fortunate to be part of a school that offers courses in computer science and programming. You are not being forced to know how to code because your teachers are mean and want you to suffer. As the speaker mentions in the video, computer science is no longer just for engineers and programmers, it's for everyone. The speaker says that computer science is foundational for any job. So you have the unique opportunity to embrace the next couple of weeks learning a little bit of code. And maybe this is going to be your first time programming, or maybe you are well versed in how computers are controlled and manipulated by people. But let's take a look at this next video and let's learn a little bit more about computer programming and coding.
What do you want to be when you grow up, Olivia?
An astronaut.
I want to be a fashion designer.
A basketball player.
I want to be an actor.
A doctor.
A teacher.
A chef.
An artist.
What do you want to be when you grow up? A mermaid.
Do you know what a computer programmer is?
Yeah, no.
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 I think it's something that has codes and is able to decode a mystery.
I think that they...
Wait, what?
Computer programmer?
No.
Nowadays, just about everything requires some form of programming. So, what is it? Programming is basically explaining to a computer what you want it to do for you.
When you're programming, you're teaching possibly the stupidest thing in the entire universe, a computer, how to do something.
Programming is one of the only things in the world that you can do where you can sit down and just make something completely new from scratch, you know, whatever you want.
It's really not unlike kind of playing an instrument or something, or playing a sport. It starts out being very intimidating, but you kind of get the hang of it over time.
Coding is something that can be learned, and I know it can be intimidating. A lot of things are intimidating, but what isn't?
A lot of the coding that people do is actually fairly simple. It's more about the process of breaking down problems than, sort of coming up with complicated algorithms as people traditionally think about it.
Well, if it's fairly simple, why aren't there more of us doing it? Over the next 10 years, there will be 1.4 million jobs in computer science, and only about 400,000 grads qualified for those jobs. That's a shortage of 1 million people. So, how do you start?
I was obsessed with maps when I was a kid, and cities specifically. So I taught myself how to program. I had a very clear goal of what I wanted to do, which is to see a map of the city on my screen and play with it. Put things on the map, move things around the map. See what was happening in the city, how it worked, how it lived, how it breathed.
The first program I wrote asked things like, what's your favorite color? Or how old are you?
I first learned how to make a green circle and a red square appear on the screen.
The first time I actually had something come up and say, hello world, and I made a computer do that. It was just astonishing.
When I finally learned a little bit of programming, that blank wall resolved into a bunch of doors, and you open them, and finally you start to open enough doors that the light comes in. And to me, a finished program is like a structure filled with light. All the corners are illuminated. You understand the structure of it. It's a really serene feeling to have completed that.
It took me some time to realize that creating things with your hands or creating code, creating programs, is just a different way to express creativity. I think right now there's a big emergence of the culture of making. People who make their own scarves and hats, people who write their own apps.
Now it's just limited by your imagination and sort of what kinds of ideas what kind of understanding can you build into the computer so that it can do these things that were previously impossible?
All great things are built in teams when you collaborate with other smart people.
You're testing your ideas, you're stimulating each other. That's what makes us successful. It's not some flash of brilliance by somebody who then codes 24 hours a day for 3 weeks. It's what happened. The magic happens when we're all on the same page, collaborating and building something together.
There's a much greater need in the world for engineers and people who can write code than there will ever be supply. And so we all live these very charmed lives. To get the very best people, we try to make the office as awesome as possible.
We have a fantastic chef,
Free food,
breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
free laundry,
snacks, even places to play and video games and scooters. There's all these kind of interesting things around the office and places where people can play or relax or go to think or play music or be creative.
I went on the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the United States, and there's about a third of the pie that's all the things you would expect. It's, they're working in the government, they're working in typical technology jobs. But then, like, the rest of the pie, and it was the majority of the pie, just split down into these little teeny slices of every industry imaginable. And what it is, computers are everywhere. You want to work in agriculture? Do you want to work in entertainment? Do you want to work in manufacturing? It's just all over.
Here we are, 2013. We all depend on technology to communicate, to bank, information, and none of us know how to read and write code.
So you guys, what else? Who else has an idea of what we can change with our programming? What else can we do? Tiffany?
What I saw my students take away from using Scratch and programming in our classroom is that they were willing to push through problems. It really builds critical thinking, it builds problem solving, and it's something that they can then apply to math in the classroom or their reading skills. We integrated science with this programming, and I saw my scores go up 30%.
When I was in school, I was in this after-school group called the Whiz Kids. And when people found out, they laughed at me and, all these things. And I'm like, man, I don't care. I think it's cool. And, I'm learning a lot. And some of my friends have jobs.
It's important for these kids. It should be mandatory to be a citizen on this planet, to read and write code.
I just think you have to start small, right? And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about computer science and programming overall is that you have to learn this big body of information before you can do anything.
You don't have to be a genius to know how to code. You need to be determined.
Addition, subtraction, that's about it.
You should probably know your multiplication tables.
You don't have to be a genius to code. Do you have to be a genius to read? Do you have to be a genius to do math? No. No. I think if someone had told me that software is really about humanity, that it's really about helping people by using computer technology, it would have changed my outlook a lot earlier.
Whether you're trying to make a lot of money or whether you just want to change the world, computer programming is an incredibly empowering skill to learn.
To be able to actually come up with an idea and then see it in your hands and then be able to press a button and have it be in millions of people's hands. I think we're the first generation in the world that's really ever had that kind of experience.
The programmers of tomorrow are the wizards of the future. You're going to look like you have magic powers compared to everybody else.
I think it's amazing. I think it's the closest thing we have to a superpower.
Great coders are today's rock stars. That's it.
For a long time, I never considered myself a creative person. I'm not artsy in any sense of the word, and when I started coding, however, I started to find an outlet that allowed my God-gifted creativity to come to light. And so when you code, you have control over everything. You can create whatever you want. And what I'm trying to say is that if you have an open mind, coding can actually be a lot more fun than you think. So let's take a moment and let's speak to the practical side of knowing how to code. Did you catch how many jobs in computer science will be available in the next 10 years? That's right, 1.4 million jobs. But how many of those jobs will actually be filled by qualified graduates? Only 400,000. Can you believe that? There are going to be 1 million jobs up for grabs. Do you know what that means? Number one, job security. You will be desperately needed in that field, and so your chances of being laid off or let go are like almost zero because they need you. Number two, it means you have options. You'll get to pick of pretty much whatever job you want because there are so many jobs and so few people to fill them. And number three, pay. Go ahead, look up the starting salary for a computer programmer because employers need these jobs to be so desperately filled. They are willing to pay big time for them. So if you happen to be or become interested in computer science during this unit, know that you could be putting yourself in a great position for a really promising career. But I know that that's not what most of you probably want to do. So if you have no interest in having a career in computer science, why should you learn how to code? The short answer is because everyone else is going to know how. Basically, all business, they all run on technology. Technology is unavoidable. More and more things are becoming automated. Besides smartphones, obviously, we have autonomous vehicles. We have robots that build pretty much everything that you use. Heck, even fridges are smart now. Guys, even dog walkers have to organize finances and probably maintain a website. So computers are everywhere. If you want to be a benefit to any employer, it would be helpful for you to at least know some basics about technology. And more people are realizing this. Most people your age are going to have some sort of coding experience on their resume when they apply for jobs. So to those of you who don't really want to do this for the next week or so, I encourage you to think about the big picture here. Do you really want to be left behind? Or can you suck it up for 1 week and learn a skill that could prove to be an invaluable asset to your resume? So before the end of class, I need everyone to do a couple of things for me. Number one is to make sure that you submit your What is Computer Science page to Canvas. You should have all of the information you need to answer the questions. Make sure that you turn that in on Canvas to get credit for it. Number 2, you guys are going to find Learn to Code 1 on your Swift Playgrounds app. So hopefully by now Swift Playgrounds has loaded for you. If it hasn't, then you can complete this either tonight or tomorrow, so don't worry. But if you do have Swift Playgrounds loaded, then make sure that you follow along because you will want to get this completed. It is an assignment.
Okay, so when we are in Swift Playgrounds, yours is going to look a little bit different because these are all things that I have created and already downloaded to my Swift Playground, so don't panic if yours looks completely different. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the bottom and you should see here where it says More Playgrounds. And you're going to see that there are some options there. If you see what you're looking for, you can go ahead and click on it, but likely what you'll need to do is click the See All option. So hopefully you can see the See All option in the bottom right-hand corner here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on that. Okay, so now that we're here and we've pushed See All, you can see that there are different categories. At the top it says Learn to Code and Build Apps. So you're going to see a row up here and you might be able to see 3 different icons. And what we're actually going to do is we are going to scroll over until we see Learn to Code 1. So what you want to do is you want to look for this logo to make sure that that's the one that you want. I'm going to click on it. So it says Learn to Code 1. Now I do want to point out that Learn to Code 2 is over here. You do not need to do anything with that. It's there if you wanted to pursue it, but do not click on the green one. You want the yellow one that says Learn to Code 1. Okay? And then you are going to push Get, and it is going to start downloading. And it's going to look like this, and you can see that mine's going pretty fast. I already have a copy of it, but that's okay. It's going pretty fast, and then it loads, and then it's there for me to click on. Oops, let me push Done. And it's here for me to click on and get started. Now I do want to mention that yours might take a little bit longer to load just because we have the whole class do it at the same time. So we're taking up a lot of the bandwidth of the Wi-Fi to try to download this to our Swift Playgrounds. But then once you have it here, you're going to see that it gives you an introduction. So we can click through this and you should read through these. And all I'm doing is pushing the blue right arrow down here. And like I said, you guys should read through these, but I'm just going to click through them just so that you can see what it looks like. And then I just clicked Start Coding in order to get to this first page.
So on this first page, you're going to see a couple of different things. On the top left is where you are going to get your instructions. On the bottom left is where you're going to put your code, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then on the right-hand side, you have your actual puzzle world. So you can move it around, you can rotate it, get a better look at things. You can also click on your character, and a lot of students like to do this. You can click on them, and then you can choose which character you want to play with. So I can select maybe the little droplet guy, and then he's going to come back to my map. And now I want to figure out how to get him to collect the gem. And I know that because I've read the instructions. So sometimes students like to not read the instructions, and then they're like, hey, what am I supposed to do? And I say, did you read the instructions? And they're like, no. And it tells you what to do. So here it says, look for the gem in the puzzle world, enter the correct combination. So I'm going to type M because I'm probably going to have to move forward. And as soon as I click M, the red just means it's not ready to run yet, that the code wouldn't work if I pushed now. But here at the bottom, you can see where it says move forward. And that's the command that's already programmed into Swift to make it easier on you. And so really what I want to do is when that command pops up, because I've typed M, now I just want to click on the ones on the bottom to try to solve the puzzle world. So I'm going to click on move forward a couple of times and then collect gem, and this prevents you from having any typing errors or things that would make the computer or your code not run. And so I really do recommend that you use these commands, the functions at the bottom, because it will make your life easier, especially then because you don't have to type them all out. So once I have all of my code complete, I see over here in my puzzle world that I want to collect the gem. So I push run code at the bottom,
He moves forward and collects the gem, which is exactly what I was supposed to do for this level. So you see it says congratulations, and then you can move on to your next page. So you could click next page, and then it would take you to the next set of things that you are supposed to do. So it'll load your puzzle world. They all look a little different, but it works in the same way. You've got your instructions, and then you can enter your code. So you can see at the top left here, there's a little menu button. So you are gonna have to do this for an assignment, and in the assignment on OneNote, it tells you how many green check marks you need to have. So you can see this green check mark on the left here, and that's what you're looking to accomplish. So if your OneNote says you need 7 or 21 or however many it is, then you need to make sure that you have that many check marks. And you do so by clicking this little menu button on the top left. So once you go through, you can complete page by page. I do 100% recommend doing them in order because they build on top of each other. So if you try to skip to the end without doing a previous one, then you might be a little bit lost. But then once you have all of your green check marks, then you'll just be able to screenshot it and turn it in.
Already done a lot today, so I'm going to give you a breather. You must be back in your seats. Your phones must be in the pocket when the alarm goes off. You may grab your phones, you may go to the bathroom, vending machine, you can take a walk, a lap, stay on campus, obviously. Be back on time and ready to go.
All right, guys, so for the remainder of class, your responsibilities are to turn in the What is CS page, What is Computer Science, where we answer the questions about the videos. Make sure that is all set on Canvas and ready to go. And also be working on Learn to Code 1. So you have to create, or complete rather, a good number of those check marks. And so please start working on that. It will also help you as we start to learn to code next week, which you will need for the project you're going to do in your teams. So spend the rest of your class time working on these things and have fun with it. Ask your teacher if you have questions.